We have lots to talk about here in today's video, including some trade talk around a handful of teams, including the Maple Leafs and the Rangers, who could be very interested in Avalanche forward Marty Necas. Plus, according to ESPN, it seems like a pretty good possibility we may see up getting Malkin in Florida. We'll discuss the latest on that scenario. Plus, we have latest NHL news on the waiver wire, more activity there. We got 14 games on the NHL schedule today. A lot of NHL players slated to make their NHL debuts tonight as well. And we have some injury updates and a few other notes from around the league coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, it's an exciting day of NHL hockey. We're now into the third day of the NHL season. We have 14 games on the schedule. It's a very busy night. Unfortunately, though, there are no games tomorrow. We have a very late Friday, but then on Saturday, the reason for that is that everybody plays on Saturday. We're going to get our first scenario of all 32 teams being in action with the Frozen Frenzy. So clearly, that's always an exciting day where you get staggered games throughout the entire day from coast to coast. So I mean that's exciting. I know for Amazon users in Canada as well. The Coast to Coast is back tonight as well. So their program on Thursdays, which will take you from coast to coast. It's a great program where you can watch all the different games, at least bits and pieces of them all, and get commentary on from their studio panel on everything going on in the league throughout the entire night. So it's a fun way to watch hockey. And of course they'll be back with their Monday night schedule as well. If you haven't had a chance to do so, I highly recommend you check out the new Amazon Season 2 of NHL Face-Off behind the scenes action with 6 episodes this year. Some pretty good content overall to enjoy. Now, as I mentioned, like I said, 14 games on the schedule. We have a lot of players making their NHL debut tonight, and some pretty important ones at that. We've got the first overall pick from the 2025 NHL Draft, New York Islanders defenseman Matthew Schaefer. Matthew Schaefer will become the youngest first overall pick defenseman to make his NHL debut. So of all the guys that have been a defenseman and gone first overall, he will be making his debut at the youngest age. So quite a feat for him. A heck of a player by the looks of things. Had a good preseason, and now we'll see how he does here in the NHL. We've also got the number 3 overall pick from 2 drafts ago, Beckett Seneca with the Anaheim Ducks, ready to make his NHL debut. And from this year, Brady Martin for the Nashville Predators, already getting a chance to not only make his NHL debut, but I believe he's going to be playing a top 6 role, maybe even on their top line. We'll see how long he stays there. All of these guys, of course, may stick around the whole season. They may not. They may get their 9-game trial and decide to go back to junior or something else. But in some of these cases, these players are getting significant roles. We've also got the New Jersey, Arseny Gricic makes his debut tonight. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have a 25-year-old rookie, the big 6'9" Curtis Douglas, who they picked up on waivers just a few days ago. So that'll be interesting, as well as the Lightning have their home opener tonight as they host the Ottawa Senators. So clearly lots of players that are going to be fun to watch, and they're expected to have some pretty good careers making their debuts tonight. Another debut going on this evening as well is Jonathan Toews. After over 2 years away from the NHL, he is good to go. There was some doubt about his health because he did have an injury in the preseason, but he is going to be in the lineup tonight and will make his Jets debut for his hometown team. So it's going to be interesting to see how Jonathan Toews does as well. I know throughout the preseason there was a lot of comments that he looked pretty good, but he was certainly progressing. I think early on it was more a case of like the hands not being quite where they needed to be after being obviously rusty, being away for a while, but things certainly have progressed and picked up, I think, as the preseason and training camp went on. So I'll be curious to see how impactful he can be and just what kind of role he'll be able to play for the Winnipeg Jets after a long absence. But I mean, he was a heck of a player when he was in the league before. What version of himself are we going to see is the big question. So we'll see on that. Now, another signing today, this one's not in the NHL, is Michael McLeod, who was, of course, away from the NHL for the past number of months during the 2018 World Junior Championship players that were on trial. Of course, they were all acquitted. We know that, so none of them were facing any more punishment or anything, so they're all able to resume their careers, and the NHL cleared them all to sign contracts as of October 15th, and they can start playing again as of December. But there's certainly some fan bases, some teams that are not crazy about signing these players. Anyway, some of it I think is they just don't want the PR stuff that comes with what they just went through, and to some degree, I think some of it is just around skill sets. Now, Carter Hart, who probably had the strongest career out of all of them, appears to be set to sign with the Vegas Golden Knights. That's expected to happen on the 15th when he's eligible to do so. But Michael McLeod, who was probably the player that was getting the most next amount of interest, was expected to sign with the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, the Hurricanes were also in the mix for Hart as well. Now, I don't know if Hart going to Vegas is more of a him decision than it was a team decision. I don't really know how things went. Just at one point, there was a report saying that the Hurricanes were expected to sign both Hart and Michael McLeod. I know there was a lot of fan pushback. I know there was a number of fans who wrote letters and said that if that happened, they were going to cancel their season tickets and all that. There just seemed to be a lot of fan pushback, and the team seemed to have kind of decided to shy away from it. So ultimately, Michael McLeod ends up signing a 3-year contract over in Russia in the KHL. I think it's pretty clear that he's not going to have an opportunity in the NHL for some time. And, well, if he played for the team he played for in the KHL before, when he was over there for another stint while awaiting trial, is the team that ended up taking him back. So clearly it seemed to be, they welcome him there, and he's did okay there, so he might as well sign, because I don't think the NHL teams are going to be too anxious to sign him. We already saw Alex Formenton, of course, re-sign where he used to play in the Swiss League. That contract was only good until the December, around Christmas time. We'll see if he extends or stays there. But, I'm not sure about the other guys. I mean, I haven't heard a whole lot of anything around Dylan Dubé or Cal Foote, but those three have had, Formenton, there really wasn't any interest in the NHL, so he went back to Switzerland. And, of course, these two guys were getting the most talk, and that's where things stand there. More activity on the NHL waiver wire. The St. Louis Blues did have Georgi Romanov on waivers yesterday. He cleared after signing a 2-way contract, so he's good to be assigned. And today we have a new player on waivers. Winnipeg Jets have placed forward David Gustafson on waivers, so they'll be looking to assign him to the Manitoba Moose should he end up clearing. Otherwise, we did have a little stretch there, lots of waiver activity with a few claims, but we're at that stage now where that's calmed down. There will be activity from time to time, but not so much on a consistent daily basis like there used to be. Now, a few injury updates to start the year as well for a few players. Barrett Hayton with the Utah Mammoth is considered day-to-day. He will not be in action for their first game. The Ottawa Senators kick off their season tonight. They have a 2-game road trip in the state of Florida, battling the Lightning, followed by the Panthers on Saturday. They are going to be without Drake Batherson and defenseman Tyler Kleven this evening. Kleven will also miss the Florida game for sure. He did not travel on this road trip, so he's still rehabbing back in Ottawa. He is not expected to be out long term, is considered day-to-day, and I think they're hopeful at this point that he'll be available for their home opener next week against the Nashville Predators. Drake, on the other hand, Drake Batherson, is still possibility to play Saturday against Florida. They haven't ruled him out yet for that, but we'll see for that. If not, right now they have Alde Lexell, who did clear waivers, but he remained on the roster because of the Batherson injury. He is playing tonight, and I assume he'll likely remain in the lineup against the Panthers, unless they opt to put in Curtis McDermott, because they do have him, and he's expected to be a scratch in the first game against the Lightning here tonight. The Edmonton Oilers also today placed defenseman Jake Wallman on injured reserve. We knew Wallman was dealing with an injury, was likely miss a little bit to start the year, but where he was injured some time ago in the preseason, he is technically able to be activated off IR anytime. But the reason they placed him on IR was so that they could free up a roster spot for the newly signed Jack Roslovic, who of course came to terms last night during the game while the Oilers were playing the Flames. He signed a contract 1 year, $1.5 million. And so now they had to figure out making room for him. They did have a little bit of room within their LTIR pool to fit the contract in, but they needed a roster spot. So Wallman to IR solves that, at least for today, where Roslovic was not able to participate in an NHL training camp. I'm not sure how quickly they're going to put him into NHL game action. Now, I know he was skating and training on his own with other teams that he was the best of his ability, but I would suspect that he's going to want to practice with the team and get some more training in with the Oilers before he has game action, at least I would suspect. So ultimately, if Jake Walman is ready to return from the injury before he plays, then there's going to have to be another subsequent move here to get Walman back on the roster. So like we were talking about last night, when this news was announced, it's not going to force their hand to make a move like a trade or a demotion immediately, but because of the Walman injury and the situation with Zach Hyman on IR and Matthias Janmark, they can buy a little bit of time here. But in the short term, once they get healthy bodies back, they're going to have an abundance of forwards, and they're going to have to make some moves. So you're going to see, whether it's maybe Curtis Lazar, they could send Isaac Howard down to the minors. There's maybe like an Adam Henrique. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say who's going to become the extra. So it's not going to have as consistent of a role. We'll have to wait and see how everybody's playing and see how they do there. But you're going to see probably a more prominent name either on waivers or traded out of the Oilers organization to make room. So we'll have to see where that goes. But like I said, depending on the situation with Walman and when Rostovic's ready to play, they bought some time for now, and we'll just have to see where everything goes on that front. Now, some trade and free agent talk when it comes to not free agents right now, but like free agent contracts for pending UFAs. Some updates on a few players. Pierre LeBrun's reporting that Adrian Kempe, of course, on his last year of his contract with the Los Angeles Kings, there's still definitely a gap between him and Los Angeles to get a deal done on a long-term extension. There is mutual interest, of course, for both sides to get that done. But right now, the numbers have changed a little bit for what the player's looking for compared to where they first started in the offseason, because the market has definitely reset. LeBrun references the fact that they're kind of looking at the Kyle Connor contract that was just signed at $12 million as being one of the comparables that they're looking at now as they continue negotiations with the Kings. To some degree, that the William Nylander contract is being kind of used as well. I mean, I don't know that Kempe is a perfect comparison to either of those guys, but they're probably looking and saying, okay, he's kind of a cross between the two. Maybe not quite as big of a name or productivity wise as those two, but he's not that far off. So they're probably looking at least an $11 million contract, maybe a little bit more with Connor getting 12. Could Kempe conceivably get 11 or 11 and change? I don't think that's unreasonable to think. So that's likely where things are going. The last we had heard from the Kings side in the summer is they were around 9 on a long-term extension. So as Kempe's number continues to go up, the team, I'm not sure how much they've budged. So there's still a decent gap. And I suspect with it being Anze Kopitar's final season, like I said, his importance to the team, Kempe's that is just become that much more important. And I don't think they want this to drag on too long, because at some point he might shut down negotiations. The players tend to do that if it goes on too far, because they don't want a distraction during the year. Now, another update as well. ESPN's Greg Wyshynski today indicated that there's a growing narrative and sentiment around the league, according to a variety of league sources and executive that he's talked to, saying that with the fact that the Florida Panthers are without Barkov and expected to be for the entire season, along with the fact that Evgeny Malkin, is in the final year of his contract with Pittsburgh. We know his time in the NHL is likely coming to an end. We know his time at the Penguins are definitely coming to an end. The fact that he lives and has a home in the Miami area, there's a belief that they're going to figure out a way to make this happen and to get Malkin to become one of the top centermen for the Florida Panthers. To obviously he's not Barkov, but to be a Barkov replacement with a high-profile, productive player with lots of experience and cups on his resume, Malkin would likely be one of the better options for guys that are, pending unrestricted free agents that could be available as a rental. I have no clue what kind of price tag Pittsburgh would be looking for. But like I said before, when it comes to Malkin, Crosby, if they leave Pittsburgh, I don't know that you're going to get a massive return. Even though they're legendary players, because at the end of the day, they're going to be traded because they want to be. I don't know that the Penguins are going to have a lot of leverage. If they don't want to be traded and they decide, you know what, I'm just going to ride this out, to heck with it, I'm not going anywhere, then that's their right, and that's what will happen. So, like I said, the Penguins don't have a lot of leverage. Unless they get into a situation where the player kind of says, I'll go to these 2 or 3 teams, you can figure it out, which I don't see happening. Those guys are, there's so much respect around the league for them, for what they've accomplished and what they've done and the experience level. They're not going to get to a point where they give like Dubas, say, a list of like even 3 or 5 teams or anything like that and say, here's where I'd go. They're going to say, I will go there. And I would like to go, please, so make it happen. So the other team is not going to give you as much as you would want because they don't have the leverage. So I don't know that the trade return is going to really wow Penguins fans, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, you want to do right by these players. They've done so much good for your organization. If they want an opportunity to move on and to play more competitive hockey for their final remaining time in the NHL, then that's their choice. That's their prerogative, and they will accommodate them accordingly. So ultimately, like I said, according to Wyshynski, it sure sounds like there's a growing sentiment that Malkin will end up in Florida sometime before the season gets too far deep. But I know that there's also seems to be a sentiment from Florida fans, and maybe not so much of fan base, but like listening to like the players and team talk. I don't know that they're ready to throw the towel in yet on Barkov and say he's done for the year, because that would be required in any kind of deal to make it happen. So, based on the surgery and the injury that he has, I would be surprised if he could play in the playoffs. Like, you're probably looking at a best case scenario of if they made it to the Stanley Cup final, that maybe he could play then. But ultimately, he's got a long career still left ahead of him. He's not going to want to rush back and put more at risk. This is already a serious enough injury that we've seen a lot of players really be impacted and maybe not be the same player sometimes afterwards. So you already have that concern for Barkov. Is he going to be able to come back and be the same Barkov? You hope for his sake that he can, but the odds are not favorable for that to happen. It's quite likely impossible here that he is, not quite able to do all the same things that he was able to do because of that significant injury. So we'll have to wait and see where it goes. But like I said, according to ESPN, Malkin to the Panthers is something that appears to be kind of heating up behind the scenes. So we'll see. Now, as I mentioned about a few other guys, we got Panarin and Necas, a couple of players I want to talk about. RG.org's Jamie Murphy has a new article out saying that both Panarin with the Rangers and Necas with the Avalanche are both far apart on contract extensions. And after all the signings that we've seen here leading into the beginning of the NHL season, they're 2 of the more prominent names that very well could hit free agency next year. Like I said, between Kempe and Panarin and Necas, there's, the list is dwindling down of players that big name players that could be free agents next year. We've already seen signings for Eichel and McDavid and Kaprizov. So Kyle Connor and these guys, the names just keep dropping off the list, right? So from a fan perspective, and from somebody who likes to see a lot of movement around the league, that kind of sucks for interesting storylines. But there's still, interesting players out there that could fit this bill. But Panarin and Necas, nowhere near extensions, according to Murphy, right now with their existing teams. Now, according to his sources, he says that the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Rangers, when it comes to Necas, would be 2 teams that have shown a lot of interest in Panarin before, or not Panarin, sorry, in Necas before, and could very well be teams to watch in his availability. Now, the big thing with Marty Necas, and the belief here is that he will not sign long-term with the Avalanche. And this is not a case that, from what we've heard and believe, according to Murphy's sources, it's not because he does not want to be there. This is not because Necas has refused to re-sign or anything like that. This is strictly a case of cap logistics. Right now, there does appear to be mutual interest for the Avalanche to keep Necas and for Necas to consider signing to stay as well. That's not the problem. The problem is they have a looming extension that's going to eat up a lot of their cap for a very important player, and his name is Cale Makar. Makar is going to be commanding at least as much as Kaprizov, and, well, obviously with his resume and his young career, he's kind of a big deal. So you kind of have to look after Cale Makar. So leaving the space available to do that just makes it almost impossible to sign Necas as well. So that's the pickle that they're in here. It's more of a cap problem. Even with the rising cap, they would still likely struggle to fit both of these new contracts in. So a lot of NHL executives are telling RG.org that they really firmly believe the odds are favorable that Necas is moved along sometime during the year. Otherwise, the Avalanche, if they don't do it, the only other reason would be that they decide to keep him as their own rental. And if they think they can win a cup, and if they lose them, they'll deal with it, which would ultimately suck, because especially where they gave up Rantanen to get him, and then to have him walk like 2 seasons later would be brutal. But if they want another Stanley Cup, maybe that makes it a little easier to deal with. So I guess there is that possibility, but NHL executives around the league don't see it, especially if you look at the way the Avalanche acted last year with Rantanen and how they reacted to those negotiations and the fact that they weren't going well. It's, again, not that they didn't want to keep Rantanen. A lot of keeping Rantanen's salary down, again, was projecting further out what else they needed to do. They weren't prepared to go to where Rantanen wanted to go. Now, looking what he ended up signing in Dallas, I do wonder they may have gone to that. So I do think there's some regret there to some degree, but he can't take it back now. However, with all that said, Necas is another beast here, of course, and somebody who they do like and does fit well with that team. Scored a couple big goals on their opening game. But if they're going to have a hard time to do it, they said that when he was with Carolina before he was traded, the Maple Leafs and the Rangers had both engaged in trade talks with the Hurricanes to consider trying to make a move for him then. Obviously, it didn't work out. He went to the Avalanche for Rantanen. But we know that the Hurricanes, because we heard the rumors and we know that they've been verified, that they had talks with the Maple Leafs around Mitch Marner. Necas was on the table in that offer. We know that. So that's likely when they were having those conversations. Now, the Leafs don't have a top player like a Marner to trade right now. They're looking to add. So I think it would be tougher for the Leafs to pull that off. I don't see them trading or getting somebody to waive like a Tavares or a Nylander or somebody. And obviously they'd have to move a salary that's reasonably significant to make it work. So it would be more challenging for sure. The Rangers, of course, could opt to not re-sign Panarin, who they're already having negotiations with and are far apart, and bring Necas in, who's a younger player they might feel might be a better fit longer term anyway. Because they already went to Panarin and asked him to take a hometown discount and sign for less to remain, and he was not crazy about that. So there is a big gap there. So the Rangers also could be an interesting piece. We know they have some younger players that, would they offer up a Lafreniere? Or I know like a player like Brendan Othman might be looking for a new start. They do have some younger players there that I'm not sure if they would be what Colorado would want, but they have some interesting names to at least talk about and put on the table. Another team, according to the same sources talking to RG.org, to watch here that might be a player, like one of those dark horse teams, is the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks have cap space. They have lots of young talent. And, we know they're being aggressive to try to get themselves into the playoffs. They want to take the next step. And Necas could be an upgrade on some of their kids. He's like that already established younger player that could mix well with a McTavish and a Carlson. Obviously they got guys like Cutter Gauthier and, Beckett Seneca making his debut tonight, as I mentioned earlier. They just signed Jackson LaCombe. They got Lucas Dostal. They just brought in a new head coach. Like, I can see the Ducks being a lot more aggressive in the next 1 to 2 years, trying to take those next steps. He could be an interesting name to watch in that regard as well. So let me know your thoughts on the future of Artie Necas at the Leafs, Rangers, or Ducks. Makes sense? What kind of deals do you think make sense, and where could he land if it seems unlikely for him to remain with the Avalanche? Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.